Well, well, what do we have here? Looks like more soldiers found their way into our development bunker, eh? Don't worry, we won't tell the staff sergeant, so long as you don't say a word to anyone else in the base. Ain't that right, hey man?
Yeah, they cool.
Alright, so, what's a development bunker, you ask? Well, we decided to set up shop here while the war is raging on outside and use whatever spare time we have to develop a little game called Born to Build. So, why don't you all take off your boots, sit back and relax while I tell you what this game is all about and what inspired us to develop it in the first place. I initially planned to do a breakdown of my modeling and animation workflow for the game when I suddenly realized that we never really made a proper introduction to the game or our little studio. So even though I told the rest of the platoon on Discord that our first devlog would be about my animation workflow, I think it's more important to start at the beginning. We'll shoot that particular video on a later date. Alright, enough of this introduction bullshit. Here's why we're making Born to Build. There are definitely several games that we take inspiration from, but the biggest contributor has to be Ace of Spades, specifically version 0.75. My favorite thing about Ace of Spades was its slower pace and the whole thing of terrain manipulation. The fact that I could, slowly dig my way into a mountainside somewhere and just try to get a jump on an enemy that has no idea where I'm coming from was always super satisfying to me. I also really loved hearing enemies digging underneath me. It was always like such a rush when you can, tell your friends like, stop, don't move, I hear something. And then you try to flush them out with a grenade or dig down and find them to take them out by surprise. It was just awesome. Since the game was so early in development, it was a very good case for the less is more mentality. It only needed to build on those great foundations, but as we all know, sadly, that just never came to pass.
Yo dude, Heyman here. I'd also like to say something about Ace of Spades, over.
Comms yours, hey man, go ahead.
What we usually did was that I would just build stuff while Orca kept us safe. I came up with different ways to build structures and make it harder for enemies to destroy. Sometimes in servers like Shames the Pony, the admins would give me invincibility since I just wanted to build covers, bunkers, bridges and anything for our team. I have a very fond memory from a map called Mesa. Basically, I built a tunnel all the way from our base to the enemy's base, built a bunker in the middle of the mountain, and just went ham. They didn't know what hit them. I really miss that kind of experience in current FPS games. Over.
AOS had so much potential, but it was unfortunately cut short because a certain publisher stepped in, bought the IP, and turned a slower-paced tactical experience into, this. They also charged money for what was a completely free title, while also stomping out all of its personality to fall in line with what was becoming more popular at the time. They just ruined the original experience of Ace of Spades. If you want a full breakdown of what happened to Ace of Spades, I highly recommend watching the Why Ace of Spades Died video by Robocast. Seeing his video almost a year ago really gave us a push forward to attempt and fill the gap left by AOS, so we owe him our thanks. Give him a watch, it's a great video. Me and Heyman both played Ace of Spades from the pickaxe days to that bitter end, and we kinda stopped playing multiplayer FPS games after that. We moved on to other game genres, and as the years passed, all of us were working on other unrelated game projects, getting some solid game dev experience until 2020 happened. We suddenly found ourselves with a lot more free time, what with us losing our jobs and all. So with newfound time on our hands, we started to play some build and shoot to relive the old days of Ace of Spades. After a few rounds, we decided to try and look around for any AOS successors that could hopefully scratch the same itch, and we came to the conclusion that while solid attempts were definitely made, they all kinda missed the essence of the game in our opinion. Most of these titles either upped the gameplay pace or changed something about the combat mechanics, block placement, experience, and just introduced systems that, well, let's just say that was all close but no cigar. Either many of the devs behind these games, who are clearly talented game developers, absolutely, I'm not on them, I'm just saying, as an Ace of Spades player, this is just what I feel. They either never played during the heyday of Ace of Spades, or perhaps they just had a different idea for what kind of game Ace of Spades should be. So we made a general outline for what game we can develop that will capture the essence of Ace of Spades, with a flourish of design inspirations from other games that we enjoyed playing together throughout the years, to really bring that awesome experience into greater focus. I should note that we're not here to make a carbon copy of Ace of Spades. We want to use it as our main guideline and reference while we try to add features that should only complement the core experience of the game. Another game that we're taking plenty of notes from is Viet Cong, which released in 2003. We still play it sometimes against each other. It's a really underrated shooter in my opinion. It has a slower pace, deadly weapons, and really immersive maps when it comes to environment and just general sound design. It's also just one hell of a fun game to play.
יואו, איזה מלך, אני לא מאמין שהצלחת לעשות את זה. איך אני שמח שיש לי איזה מצולם.
There are some other titles that I can mention, like Hidden and Dangerous 2, and even the first Call of Duty, believe it or not. On launch, I played with my childhood friends, and we just had an absolute blast. But first and foremost, we are really focused on recreating that original Ace of Spades experience with our personal twist on the formula. And just to show how serious we are actually writing our own custom engine to make sure we can build the intended experience from the ground up. So, no Unity, just one insane programmer. We really believe that this extra work will eventually pay off in the long run. So this game kind of started off by chance. I just made this drawing in Photoshop to show Heyman how I imagined our player model could look like. And he told me, you know what, I can model this in Maya, just give me a couple of hours. On a whim, I decided to record his process. It's the footage you're seeing here, which turned out to be the recording that captured the moment we both realized that, hey, we can make a game out of this, you know? We worked on other gaming projects in the past that were a lot more complicated and used Unity as their engine framework, since I knew our dear friend and programmer Amir would be interested in writing his own game engine. We kind of just started working on it without thinking too much, and since then, we're learning tons of new shit, and we're meeting once a week to just keep the magic flowing, and yeah, it's been going relatively well. Slow, but at least it's moving. It's funny how projects can come into being sometimes. As simple as drawing can spark a chain reaction if the right people are around in the right time, I suppose. And for me and Heyman, it's also kind of funny because we served in the army together, and that was like almost 11 years ago. Back then, we even talked about making our own game, like a first-person shooter, and it seems like Born to Build just took us on that journey without us even realizing it, which is why we decided to set up shop here, in a military bunker. It just seemed fitting. There's a lot of unfamiliar ground for us with Born to Build, but I believe that's part of the journey, to learn as much as we can and improve our skills as game developers. For example, I never touched any 3D software before this game came into existence. I was working mostly in 2D animation software, and now that's almost a year later, I'm modeling and animating in Maya. Yes, it's super low poly, but I'm very proud that I managed to dip my toes into 3D software. So, no matter what happens with this game, we'll be better developers by the end of it. We're both excited and a little bit terrified of the road ahead, but at least we don't have to go through it alone. That's why we have soldiers like you. So now you know our inspirations and reasons for making Born to Build and how it actually started. So I thought it would be nice to show you our internal checklist for what we're setting out to do with this game. 1. To recapture the magic of old school multiplayer FPS games. 2. To set the game during the Vietnam War, a conflict that's notorious for underground tunnels, to codify the theme of the game even further. 3. Write our own custom engine to create a world that's made of voxels, but with player and weapon models that are less restricted, thus they can be stylized further. So the player and weapons are actually low poly 3D assets, which should help us create our own distinct look, hopefully. 4. A modular approach to new gameplay features, meaning that anything we plan to add to the game will be optional. We want server admins to be able to retain any experience they enjoy. So let's say we do decide to add classes to the game at a certain point. All this will do is add a classes option to your servers. So aside from game balance and bugs, we want everything else to be modular. 5. Create a dedicated map editor for all you map designers out there. We want to streamline that process as best as we can, and that brings us to number 6. Streamlining the server hosting experience so it requires as little setup as possible. 7. The game will be 100% free, without microtransactions, loot boxes, or all that crap. I feel that in order to recreate the first-person multiplayer scene I grew up on, including any of these systems will just taint the experience. Which brings us to our last point. If it's free, what's the catch? Well, we want to play FPS games again. For some reason, newer titles just don't scratch the same itch. It's a passion project for us, and what matters for us the most is building a community of like-minded players. If this game ends up just, being us with a few hundred like-minded boomers, we won't complain. So, of course, we would like to work on this game as a full-time job, and as some of you dutiful soldiers already suggested, we will open a Patreon at a certain point, probably right around the launch of the alpha. Luckily, we all have steady jobs right now, and we aim to keep it that way until we see if things really develop with Born to Build. So, in conclusion, we're not here to remake Ace of Spades. We're here to do our own take on it and other old school FPS games we love, and to hopefully hit the mark when it comes to the correct experience we have in mind. Some of you asked me on Discord if we are planning to bring Born to Build to Steam or any other store. We feel that for the time being, we want to keep the player base small, so we'll probably set up our own client that will be sent directly to anyone who signed up for our public alpha, which you can do right now on our website. At the end of the day, we're just a 3-person team working as much as we can on Born to Build. We each come from different industries and backgrounds, but together we have nearly everything we need to continue developing this game for a good couple of years. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, please comment below or talk to us directly on Discord. You grunts on Discord already know that we run every design decision by you guys. Your feedback keeps us in line and helps us focus on the core experience we all love so much. So, if you want to be a part of this journey, consider drafting to our Discord platoon. You know where the links are. I think that about wraps it up. I hope I was able to get our goals across, and I hope to see you in our Discord and eventually in the game. The alpha should be released by the end of the year, hopefully, and I guess we'll just take it from there. The next couple of devlogs will show some of our asset creation process, and will eventually show some gameplay and behind the scenes stuff when we have more things to show. And to celebrate the first devlog video, which I hope was worth waiting for, I want to credit all you soldiers on Discord. There are almost 100 of you by this point, which is nearly 3 whole platoons. We salute you and thanks for joining us on this journey, and we only ask for your patience. I'll try to get more development bunker videos out at least once every 4 to 6 weeks. This kind of video takes a lot of time and effort to create. It's being done mostly on weekends, so really any likes, subscriptions, and shares would really be appreciated. I also want to give a shout out to my high school friend Dennis for introducing me to Ace of Spades in the first place. We wouldn't be here without you, man. Until next time, soldiers, stay safe. Thank you for joining us in our development bunker and sitting all the way through the end. Alright, get your boots back on. We're heading out on patrol soon. Over and out.